eat an L this week. I lost a frontliner that I had just been. I lost her because of how our interaction went in Dallas last year. That was the first time I met her in person. For whatever reason, we just didn't click in person, and so she felt like I was an asshole. Which is probably, there's probably some truth to that, but at the end of the day, it put a wedge in our relationship, and just over time lost that. But as a win to replace that, I actually sent out an invite to a gal who's about 2 hours north of where I'm at. Icon producing agent with another brokerage. I invited her to Dallas, and she said yes, which was a big deal for me. That was a win. So I went and got her a ticket, got her registered. She took care of her airfare and hotel. But I'm excited to bring her down and get her introduced to the group. So as much as that loss sucked, the good news is I got somebody to replace it. So it's just one of those.
Yeah, one of the things that I just dive in there real quick. So let this be a kind of a learning lessons for retention, right? Actually, hold on a second, guys. 2 people just popped in the waiting room here. Right. So how do we nurture the bottom of the cookie jar? Because sometimes we don't have those frequent touches. The bottom of the cookie jar gets stale, right? So you got to put a system in place. The bigger you get, the larger your problems, unless you put systems in place, right? That goes for agent attraction, that goes for buyers and sellers. Anything you do, you have to put that system in place. So like Adam was saying, that weekly check-in, a monthly check-in, whatever the frequency needs to be. Also connected them with the right people. One of the things that I think we're getting better at is accessing and leveraging people that you have access to, right? So are you making those introductions so those other relationships can be built, right? And not just solely contingent on your relationship. And the other thing is too, when you work with agents, we've all been in a situation where we don't like people, okay? Let's just keep it real. However, if business is good and you're getting everything that you need, a lot of people can separate business from personal. So therefore, what I'm looking at, what I look at this, it may not have been that she didn't like you. It may have been that she wasn't accessing the resources that could have prevented her from leaving. So, if we're coming from a posture of contribution and those check-in calls are, hey, what do you need? What's going on? Are you engaging? Let me kind of dissect your business, point you in the right direction. And then with that accountability piece, and she's moving in the right direction, she's closing deals, she's doing agent attraction. She doesn't have to like you. She has to like the business, right? So we have to leverage that. Okay, does that make sense? So I just encourage you guys to, offer those resources and help them be resourceful so they could plug in to the right people. Maybe they don't like Matthew, but they like someone else in the network, and there's a relationship built. So when I start dissecting this, I'm just looking at a couple possibilities. No connections were made with the right people within the network. She wasn't getting the resources that she needed. Maybe production was down. Maybe her taste buds weren't being satisfied with what EXP really has to offer. So that's a complex situation. But the learning lesson is, how do you prevent it and do your preventive maintenance from happening again? What are you going to put in place, right? So
this is huge.
Yeah. So
this is big, guys. Listen up closely, because if I knew about this before, I would have been making these retention calls. I'm only making them now because people are leaving. Listen closely.
Yeah. So now you're reacting instead of being proactive, right?
Yeah.
And being reactive is always dangerous. So if you could be proactive, do the preventive maintenance, is always a better place to be in.
Yeah. So 2 things. One, it was definitely because I was an asshole. She voiced as much, right? So that was one of the things. And I had a third party kind of give that, hey, what's really going on, right? Because there's some stuff that some people will tell you to your face, and then there's the truth that will come out when somebody else asks that has them buy in. And you're 100% right. I will tell you, for the first time ever in my business, I started using that. I've put in a temporary touch, right, through KV Core, just to automate some of that, but made it personal. Couple of text message, couple of emails. The very first message I sent out to my downline with a link to my Calendly that said, hey, I want to check on you. schedule some time. Here's my link. I had 15 people in 2 days put time on my calendar, and I was able to address real problems they were having and get them connected. And I literally I did that like 2 weeks ago. Right. And so it was one of those things like, had I implemented that sooner, it's very possible that I could have avoided some turnover. Right. But it wasn't something that was front of mind. It was something that I'm learning now.
Right. It's a learning curve, right? And so now you're making adjustments. That's what I'm telling you guys. I can't convey the importance of building a system. Okay. Any of you guys who have worked with me, past or present, I always focus on a process and a system, right? So now you have a system that is doing your out touches for you, and it's automated, which is perfect, right? And look, you got 15 responses, and now you got 15 fires, whether they're big or small, that you could do preventive maintenance for. And you could do some, some manicures of the lawn. You could do some fertilizations. You could do all that stuff, right, to keep that stuff from blowing up. So, good job. So that's a solution. And then leverage other people. Leverage, make sure everybody's getting into those meetings. Make sure other people are building relationships and building rapport on top of that. So you can touch those agents at the bottom of the cookie jar that you've only talked to a few times, especially as you get bigger, right? When you start getting 100, 200, 300, you start getting a lot of people in your downline. That's a lot of people to touch, and it's almost impossible unless you got automation. So kudos to you for building automation and sweat equity. Some of that stuff takes sweat equity where you have to pick up the phone and make those calls, where you have to have the one-on-one meetings, every quarter or every month. Okay.
Hey, Gary.
Yep.
Sorry, I have no idea when the right time is to interrupt you. So my bad. But on that point before, so if we're making retention calls, I did it. I would say half the people didn't pick up the phone. What is the best text to send them, or should I be texting them with the 15-minute calendar?
So really, this is all about building relationships, right? So for me, if they don't pick up the phone call, it's a simple text message. Hey, Michael, just checking in. How you doing, man? How's business? How's life? Give me a call when you got some time. It may take a day, it may take a week, but at least you're checking in, right? It doesn't have to be labeled, quote unquote, hey, this is a check-in call that I have to, it's not formal. It's just, hey, how's it going, man? Give me a call. Let's catch up. Right? How's business? Just keep it simple, man. That's what it's all about. Any other questions about that? That's a great topic. I think that's something that you guys.
So is this only to frontliners necessarily, or are we just looking at anyone that maybe?
Frontliners, because that's where it blows the most. And then past that, you can lean into whoever's leaning in with you for sure. You have to prioritize it, obviously, but you also, want to do your check-ins on the, on your FLAs to see what they need to come up to your frontliners, right? But yeah, you got to prioritize it. And it's all about just those touches, those frequent touches. Anything else on that? So basically, you guys, kind of like what Adam was saying, you have to be, I'm gonna call it the 3 Ps. You have to be proactive. So you have to work on being proactive. You have to work on your performance, which is skill set, and you have to work on production, right? Setting appointments, et cetera, et cetera. So the 3 Ps is very critical right now in today's market on the agent attraction side and on the buyers and seller side, okay? Because those 3 Ps is relevant to both sides, right? And so, I question you guys, and this is for your downline too. If you're engaging with these people, because Matthew, have you talked to anybody on those one-on-ones yet? Okay, so what's been kind of the climate, the disposition of these agents that are making appointments with you?
Yeah, it's usually like, hey, I know I have these resources, but I don't know where to find them. Like, I know that, or here's what's going on my business. Like, I need help. I'm floundering. I'm on an island. I haven't been attached to, the resources or people around me. What do I need to do? It's just been kind of check-ins. Hey, I'm not getting a lot of business right now. How can I feed my lead gen? There was one gal who's like, hey, I'm spending, $2,500 a month trying to get things through the door, and I'm having trouble converting. What do I do? So it's been kind of not necessarily all over the map. There's really only so many categories that people struggle in. But it's just been, I just wanted to give people an opportunity to state where they needed their help and connect them. And I've just been able to operate as like, kind of a switchboard operator. Great, this is your problem. This is where you go.
Okay, so let me give you kind of a pro tip here on how to eliminate and do some preventive maintenance for the future. Okay, so what are you doing with all that intel that you're gathering right now?
In like, what do you mean? Like,
so yeah. So this information that you're getting from these agents, the feedback.
Yeah.
What are you doing with that?
So I've provided a solution and immediately made a connection with who they need to be in contact with. So on those, like I just took immediate action with those people and plugged them into where they needed to go.
Okay, so that's a kind of a now solution, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you do preventive maintenance? This is a rhetorical question. How do you do preventive maintenance for up and coming same common denominators?
Like with a different agent has the same problem.
Mm-hmm. Did you think about that? So this is kind of how, how high level intense systems are built. So this information that you're gathering on these calls, you repurpose that, right? And how do you repurpose that? And what do you repurpose it for? Well, kind of like Adam and I are doing, we're understanding what these agents' dispositions are, what their pain points are, and we're creating videos. So now all we got to do is plug and play. If they come up with, rev share, if they come up with marketing. So we just send them a video that's relevant to their situation. Now, this is for agent, retention. So you do the same thing. You repurpose that information. So if you got 15 agents and say there's 7 different scenarios, there's 2 alike, right? Okay, so that's 14. And you got another one that's off. And say one of them is, I don't know where to find the resources. Well, guess what you do? You make a video or you make some type of document saying, hey, here's a booklet or here's a template. So if you need to find the resources, this is to my group. Here's where you find the resources. Okay. So anything that you could do that you could just duplicate that answer, you duplicate that and you have that as part of the resource. When they're onboarded, here's a checklist of things you may or may not know, kind of like facts, right? Here's all your facts. Here's a common question. Where do I find this? Here's the answer. Create a resource to where you don't have to make those 15 calls as much because now people are getting navigated from the beginning. Does that make sense? So what I would do is just take all this intel that you're gathering and do something to do preventive maintenance so you don't have to continue making 15 calls, right? Does that make sense? Now, some of them might be unavoidable where it might be a one-off or something like that, but any type of duplications, common denominators, you want to be able to just automate that, kind of like you're automating these touches, automate to where they're not going to have to, call you directly to get this information. And or develop the new process of the onboarding in the beginning. So take this information, like, okay, I'm having 2 people, 3 people not knowing where to go for this. So what am I doing wrong, or what can I supply them as a resource to help navigate that in the beginning? Okay, so it's not going to eliminate your check-in calls, but it's going to help filter your check-in calls, or you just may create new problems. I don't know. Time will tell, right?
Yeah, no, I can totally appreciate that. Like, hey, here's the solve to this problem in advance,
right?
Because they're not the only one that will have that issue.
Right, exactly. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Gary, like just a common problem I'm having is getting people to understand that workplace can solve, sorry about that, I just had a call. Like workplace can solve a lot of problems. Like Matthew's example of like an island. If people are good at searching things on Google, they can often just search the same thing on workplace and get their solution. So that's something I just need to talk to Brenda about, just how she's doing with the onboarding.
Yeah, so, well, or you make a video saying, hey, this is how you access workplace. So before you come to me, this is what you do. And if you can't find it.
Yeah, I had that same thought. I'm gonna do that.
If you can't find it, then check in with me.
Love it.
Okay. So obviously, we want to do check-in calls. And when we want to be, hold ourselves accountable, hold the agents accountable. But we, in the same token, you know, time is, you know, valuable, so we can't hold everybody's hands. I mean, then it'd just be a time suck, right? So we have to kind of balance that. And so how do you do the preventive maintenance to balance that? Well, we have to build a lot more automations and just point it to the resources that are available. Okay, and then if you need to customize that with a video or a tutorial, then let's just do that. You know, again, you're still gonna have one-offs, but at least it'll kind of shrink down that big number. Go ahead, Richard.